I'm not changing my lifestyle. I'm 4 or 5 women every day of my life.
From Ric Flair, who claimed he had been with over 10,000 women, to Bret Hart, who wrote in his own autobiography about being with hundreds, to Edge, who was reportedly caught in a controversy involving a co-worker's girlfriend while still being married himself. These are the WWE legends who were linked with the most women and how these stories came to light, starting with Ric Flair, the man who almost treated infidelity like it was a championship he had to constantly defend.
I just was wild with women.
Ric Flair, known as the Nature Boy and a 16-time world champion, is also famous for claiming that he had been with over 10,000 women, and while he later said he regretted making that statement, it was not because it was untrue but because he realized his grandchildren would one day hear it, and that detail alone says a lot, making it clear that Flair was not just exaggerating for attention or cameras, but was speaking in a way that reflected how seriously he took that image.
Remember, girls, remember, when Ric Flair's in town, showtime!
He was basically just saying the numbers out loud, and his marriage history looks like a career highlight reel on its own with 5 wives across 5 different decades, starting with Leslie Goodman from 1971 to 1983, with whom he had 2 children, followed by Elizabeth Harrell, who stayed with him through his wildest years from 1983 to 2006 and gave him Charlotte Flair and the late Reed Flair. Then came Tiffany Vandemark for a short 3-year run, followed by Jackie Beams from 2009 to 2014 in a marriage that was surrounded by domestic issues and serious allegations, and finally his 5th and last marriage to Wendy Barlow in 2018, a former WCW valet who stood by him during major health scares. While throughout all of this, the affairs were so frequent and so many that they almost faded into the background of his career, with multiple divorces directly linked to his infidelity. And even though Flair showed regret later in life, the record had already been written. Now if Ric Flair stands as the clear king of this list based on the sheer numbers he claimed, the next name is someone who actually documented everything in detail, Bret Hart. Because while most wrestlers let rumors exist without saying much, Bret Hart chose to write it all down in his autobiography Hitman, where the 5-time WWF champion did not just hint at cheating but openly described it, estimating that he had been involved in hundreds of affairs during his time on the road, especially during frequent trips to Japan, which he described as a place full of constant temptations, presenting it as part of the wrestling lifestyle where almost every man on the road was doing the same. But at the same time, he did not fully hide behind that reasoning, as he admitted feeling real guilt and recognized the damage it caused. Yet he continued anyway because of how that lifestyle affected people. And looking at his personal life, he was married 3 times, with his first marriage to Julie Smadu lasting from 1982 to 2002, while these affairs continued quietly in the background. And his second wife, Cinzia Rota, was an Italian woman he met during one of those relationships, which later turned into a marriage from 2004 to 2007. His third and current marriage to Stephanie Washington began in 2010, and is widely seen as the stable chapter his personal life never had before. And if Bret was the one who chose to write everything down, then HBK was the one who lived it openly right in front of everyone and still somehow managed to come out of it without lasting damage, because Shawn Michaels, known as the Heartbreak Kid, was not just playing a character but actually living that lifestyle, as during the 1990s he was considered one of the most talented in-ring performers in the world, while also being one of the most unpredictable and controversial figures behind the scenes, with the clique era becoming known for politics, partying, and rumors of relationships with many women across the wrestling circuit. His first marriage to Teresa Wood lasted from 1988 to 1994, while his second marriage to Rebecca Kersey, a former WCW Nitro girl, started in 1999 and continues to this day with 2 children, and the difference between those 2 phases of his life was massive, especially around 1996 when Michaels was linked to Tammy Sytch, known in WWE as Sunny, in a situation that created major backstage tension and brought serious attention to both of their careers.
The worst I can think of is the thing with Shawn. Screwing with somebody's wife or very close girlfriend, or even if she wants to, that's not the litmus test.
Rumors of dozens of other relationships during his prime years kept circulating for decades, none of them officially confirmed but many of them widely believed. And then there is the claim made by Bret Hart involving Shawn Michaels and Vince McMahon, an allegation denied by those who were close to the situation, yet one that has never completely disappeared from the discussion. And what eventually changed everything for Michaels was his turn toward religion, something not everyone on this list experienced, as others simply continued living the same fast-paced life, moving from match to match and city to city while being surrounded by co-workers that read like a list of WWE divas. And that brings us to CM Punk, whose story stands out because he built his entire identity around discipline with a straight-edge lifestyle, meaning no alcohol, no drugs, and clean living. Yet when it came to relationships within WWE, he showed a very different side, as before settling down with AJ Lee in 2013. And marrying her in 2014, he had been linked with a large number of women from a roster, with confirmed relationships including Mickie James in 2003, Maria Kanellis from 2005 to 2007, Kelly in 2007, Beth Phoenix in 2008, and Lita from 2009 into the early 2010s. While rumors suggested that the total number of partners could be over 20, including names from the independent scene like Tracy Brooks and Daphne, even before he officially joined WWE. And this pattern of dating co-workers often created real tension backstage, especially when breakups happened in an environment where everyone still had to work together the next day and act normal, with reports also mentioning friction between Punk and AJ Lee during their marriage that went beyond typical disagreements. And if CM Punk's story is filled with contradictions, then the next name is someone whose reputation became almost a character of its own. Kevin Nash, known as Big Daddy Cool, Diesel, and Big Sexy, a man whose image was built around being irresistible, and according to many backstage reports that image was not far from reality, as Nash has been married to Tamara Nash since 1988 in a relationship that survived multiple separations and at least one confirmed affair, which involved WCW Nitro Girl Chai and reportedly lasted from 1996 to 2002, a 6-year period during which he was still married.
About my relationship with Kevin, and it started off as a friendship, and we were both in relationships. He was in a marriage, and they separated legally, and then I ended up breaking off my relationship.
He later admitted to the affair, and the couple reportedly worked through it, with Nash giving credit to Tamara's strength especially during his struggles with addiction, while rumors of possible relationships with Stacy Keibler and Tori Wilson continued to circulate in wrestling media for years, never fully confirmed but also never strongly denied, keeping Nash right at the center of those stories. And his Big Sexy nickname was not just something for merchandise but was often seen as a reflection of how he lived during that time, with the fact that his marriage survived all of it being almost as surprising as the stories themselves. And while Nash mostly kept his situation limited to one long-running affair, the next name reportedly spread things across an entire locker room and even had a co-worker speak openly about it, Batista, who went through 3 marriages and built a backstage reputation that, according to former colleague the Great Khali, involved a large portion of the WWE Divas roster, as Batista was first married to Glenda Bautista from 1990 to 1998 and had 2 daughters with her, then married Angie Bautista from 1998 to 2006, a relationship that ended directly because of his affair with Melina Perez, which became widely known backstage around 2006 and 2007. And later his third marriage to Sarah Jade lasted from 2015 to 2019. While in between these relationships, he was also linked in various reports to names like Kelly and Rosa Mendez, with Khalees. Public claim that Batista had been involved with many divas, creating major discussion in wrestling circles, even though most names beyond Melina and Kelly remained unconfirmed. And what stands out about Batista's story is how long it lasted, as it was not just one phase but stretched across decades, covering 3 marriages and even 2 separate careers in wrestling and Hollywood. And if Batista's story was spread out over time, the next one happened in a single explosive moment that affected multiple careers at once. Edge, whose real name is Adam Copeland, built a Hall of Fame legacy as the Rated R superstar, but the most controversial chapter of his life was not part of any scripted storyline, as in 2005 it was revealed that he was having an affair with Lita while she was in a long-term relationship with Matt Hardy, and while Edge himself was married to Lisa Ortiz. And the fallout was massive, with Matt Hardy finding out and posting about it online, causing the story to spread across wrestling forums and mainstream media faster than any planned WWE storyline ever could.
And the message said, "Hey, it's me, and this is killing me. I can't go without talking to you. If you're gonna stay with Matt and not be with me, then I'm lost, and I don't know what I'm gonna do."
The most intense crowd reaction of that entire decade, and somehow Edge managed to turn it into a heel persona that became one of the greatest in company history, as WWE used the real-life controversy as part of a storyline, and the audience's genuine anger toward Edge and Lita made it must-watch television, with that chapter becoming such a defining moment in his off-screen legacy that it almost overshadowed a career filled with championship success. And while Edge's story played out loudly and quickly in front of everyone, the next name is very different because his story was much quieter, yet the details reveal a lot on their own. Jake Roberts, known as Jake the Snake, a man considered one of the most psychologically complex figures in professional wrestling history, and his personal life reflected that same complexity, as he was married at least 4 times, but the number that truly stands out is 8, referring to his 8 children from multiple relationships across a lifetime. that was repeatedly affected and broken apart by addiction.
When you're able to be satisfied in life with a drug or a drink and nothing else. That's all I cared about. How much coke did I have? Because when I ran out of dope, everything else was gone.
The road years were harsh for Roberts in every way, as substance abuse that eventually took over his life also fueled a pattern of reckless personal choices that left a long trail of broken relationships. But his journey to sobriety, publicly supported by DDP yoga founder Diamond Dallas Page, brought real and lasting change, and remarkably, Roberts eventually reconciled with Cheryl Hagood, his second wife, and remarried her in 2022, a development that makes the story feel less like tragedy and more like a hard-earned second chance, while the 8 children from his various relationships remain the clearest proof of just how many women were part of his life during those chaotic years, showing that Jake's story is ultimately one of survival, and the next story is a tale of pure, unfiltered excess, the kind that could only exist in the 1980s wrestling world, Hulk Hogan, who in that decade was arguably the most famous professional wrestler on the planet and possibly the most recognized athlete in America, and with that fame came a personal life that was constantly out of control even when it looked perfect on television, as Hogan married Linda Claridge in 1983 and for over 2 decades presented the image of the all-American wrestling family with 2 children and a reality TV show. But that marriage ended in 2009 partly due to an affair with Christian Plant, and he married Jennifer McDaniel from 2010 to 2021 before his third marriage to Sky Daly began in 2023 and lasted until his death. Yet it was the 2012 sex tape scandal involving Heather Clem, the wife of radio personality Bubba the Love Sponge, that defined his post-wrestling infidelity narrative, as the tape was released without his consent, leading to a lawsuit against Gawker which Hogan ultimately won, while the 1980s flings and Hollywood-era rumors add more layers to the story, though most remain unconfirmed, showing that Hogan's excess was truly cinematic, and the next man built his legend in the most visible spotlight in wrestling yet managed to keep parts of his personal life hidden for years, The Undertaker. Mark Calloway spent over 3 decades crafting one of the most airtight and impenetrable characters in wrestling history, as The Undertaker never broke kayfabe, avoided talk shows, and rarely smiled for cameras, yet his personal life turned out to be surprisingly eventful, marrying Jody Lynn in 1989 in a union that produced 1 son and lasted until 1999, then marrying Sarah Frank in 2000, whose name he even had tattooed on his throat and with whom he had 2 daughters before divorcing in 2007, and his current wife, Michelle McCool, a former WWE Divas champion, became his spouse in 2010 and together they have 1 daughter, with the transition from Sarah to Michelle reportedly causing backstage tension due to rumors that the relationship with McCool began while he was still married to Sarah, which both parties denied, though McCool faced heat from some roster members over the situation, and for a man whose entire professional persona was built on mystery and darkness, the fact that his personal life involved behind-the-scenes drama like everyone else almost feels like a storyline reveal, showing that beneath the hat and the coat, the dead man had a very human life, as The Undertaker's story is ultimately about what was hidden, while the next man's story is about what everyone could see, a possessive and jealous dynamic that played out in front of millions of fans. Every single week, Randy Savage, the Macho Man, and Miss Elizabeth are remembered as one of professional wrestling's great love stories but also as one of its cautionary tales, as Savage married Elizabeth Hewlett, known to fans as Miss Elizabeth, in 1984, and their real-life relationship was woven into WWE storylines for years, making their on-screen reunion at WrestleMania 7 after a scripted breakup one of the most emotional moments in company history. Yet behind the scenes, Savage's jealousy and possessiveness were intense, reportedly monitoring who Elizabeth spoke to, controlling her interactions with other wrestlers, and creating an isolating environment, with the couple divorcing in 1992 and Elizabeth's life after Savage ending in tragedy. While Savage's 1980s Playboy reputation suggested multiple girlfriends, though specifics are sparse compared to others on this list, and his second marriage to Lynn Payne in 2010 lasted until his death in 2011 from an atherosclerosis-related heart attack while driving, showing that his story was largely about possession and control, whereas the next man's romantic troubles played out just as visibly but with a creative twist that turned personal setbacks into new characters. Bray Wyatt, whose real name was Wyndham Rotunda, the mind behind Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, and several other personas, lived a personal life that became very public and messy in 2017 when it was revealed that while married to Samantha Rotunda since 2012, with whom he had 2 daughters, he had been having an affair with WWE ring announcer JoJo Offerman, leading Samantha to file for divorce, citing the affair in filings that were widely documented, and Wyatt went on to have 2 children with JoJo and was engaged to her at the time of his death in 2023 at just 36 years old from myocarditis, a heart condition he developed following a severe COVID-19 infection, casting a tragic shadow over everything that came before. Yet whatever the circumstances of how the relationship began, it clearly became something genuine and lasting. He died engaged to JoJo with 4 children between the 2 families, leaving behind a complicated legacy wrapped in a genuinely devastating loss for wrestling, as Wyatt's story ended in tragedy, and the next man's story unfolded like a slow-motion train wreck that kept worsening with every new headline. Steve Austin, Stone Cold, who embodied the Attitude Era with beer, stunners, and middle fingers, representing late 90s rebellion, yet off-screen his personal life was far darker than the highlight reel suggested, having been married 4 times, first to Catherine Burris from 1990 to 1992, then to Jeannie Clark, better known as the British wrestler Lady Blossom, from 1992 to 1999, with whom he had 2 daughters, and finally to Deborah Marshall from 2000 to 2003, a marriage that ended amid domestic violence charges filed by Deborah in 2002.
I hung up the phone. I started crying like a baby because she used to sound exactly like I do. For better or for worse, without the 4-letter words, she had my same accent.
Austin was charged, pleaded no contest, and received a fine along with community service, later addressing the situation in interviews and admitting that the marriage had been volatile, and his 4th and current marriage to Kristen Ferris began in 2009 and has reportedly been stable, while Austin also admitted in various interviews to affairs during his road years, framing them as part of the wrestling lifestyle without providing specifics, making the domestic violence chapter an unavoidable part of his story that sits in the middle of an otherwise celebrated legacy and forces a more complicated view of who Steve Austin was when the cameras weren't on him, with his story marked by that darkness, whereas the next man's story is defined by sheer volume, as John Cena spent nearly 2 decades as WWE's ultimate company man, the face of the franchise who never turned heel and whose merchandise kept the lights on, yet despite his efforts to keep his personal life private, it became one of the most talked about in WWE history, marrying Elizabeth Habido in 2009 and divorcing in 2012, followed by a long-term relationship with Nikki Bella from 2012 to 2018, which included a high-profile WrestleMania proposal and dominated celebrity tabloid coverage until ending when Cena decided he did not want children, a choice Nikki has spoken about publicly, and he married Shea Shariatsadeh in 2020, while rumored hookups over the years with WWE talent including Mickie James, Kelly Kelly, Victoria, AJ Lee, and Barbie Blank circulated extensively in wrestling media, though none were officially confirmed, making the pattern of rumors around Cena especially notable given the image he presented publicly. The ultimate role model, the guy doing Make-A-Wish visits and living by a strict code, John Cena's story is defined by the stark contrast between that image and the whisper network of locker room rumors, creating a cognitive dissonance wrestling fans have been pondering for years, showing that his narrative is really about the gap between image and reality, whereas the next man's story is about a reputation built slowly over decades in the shadows of the Memphis circuit and the WWE announce table. Randy Orton, a 3rd-generation wrestler, grandson of Bob Orton Sr. and son of Cowboy Bob Orton, who arrived in WWE with both a genetic gift for the business and a reputation for reckless personal behavior that took years to overcome, as his early career was marked by stories of groupie hookups and locker room misconduct that led to multiple suspensions and disciplinary actions from WWE, with rumored romantic links over the years including Stacy Keibler, Candice Michelle, Layla, Kelly Kelly, and JoJo, none officially confirmed but widely circulated, marrying Samantha Spino in 2007, with whom he had 1 daughter before divorcing in 2013, and later marrying Kim Kessler in 2015, producing another daughter and marking a seemingly settled chapter that his early career gave no hint of, with the 14-time world champion's personal transformation mirroring his in-ring evolution from an undisciplined young prospect who almost derailed his career repeatedly to a methodical veteran who knows exactly what he's doing, while the early groupie stories and locker room rumors still linger, though far removed from who Orton appears to be now, making his story one of growing up, whereas the next man's story is about someone who never really had to grow up because the spotlight followed him everywhere and the rules never seemed to apply.